Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by Lines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And it's Friday. We've got 8 games to choose from. And in this one, we're taking a look at what we think is going to be a pretty fun matchup. The C's are at home versus the Suns. Going to take a look at this one. Got another game up with the 76ers and our player props video as well. So make sure to like and subscribe to that page and follow along with us. Also want you to head to the Lines.com. You can check out all of our great written content up there each and every day and use that odds finder tool that we have for you guys. You can see all the offerings from those U.S. sports books laid out pretty clearly for you. Choose the best odds and juice back that you want on your money there. Nate, let's go ahead and jump into this 8-game slate and then talk C's and Suns.
And it's All-Star Snub Night, which is why we were going to talk about the Kings, Pacers, and De'Aaron Fox maybe balling out after he was snubbed yet again. But he's sitting for personal reasons, so that total is down to 235. The Kings offense might struggle without him. They're minus 2.5 at Indiana in a nice revenge matchup there. Hornets are plus 1.5 at Detroit. Portland plus 4 at Washington. No Nurkic, maybe no Jeremy Grant there. The Suns are plus 9.5 at Boston here. 221 total. Magic plus 5 at Minnesota. Toronto minus 8 at Houston. Other game we break down. Sixers are minus 10 at the Spurs with a declining total of 233. And then the Hawks are plus 1 at Utah with the biggest total of the night at 242. So, yeah, I mean, 221, when you're talking about a Celtics team that just got right in a big way, is really low. And I mean, you asked me if I'm concerned about the Suns slowing it down, about the Suns coming along for the ride, as we often say, but I don't think it matters. I think the Celtics, like we're talking about with the Sixers here in their matchup, they're going to score 120, and that's going to do just fine in terms of your over. The last 2 matchups against the Suns, 125 and 123, hitting 13 threes, nice assist rate, 28.5. The pace is really the key here because, yeah, you're like, isn't Chris Paul going to want this game to be at a 95 pace? Well, you can't necessarily dictate what the Celtics are going to do at home. And they played at a 100-plus pace with a 123 offensive rating. And really shut down the Suns' offense, even with Booker and Paul in there, which I guess is concerning. No DeAndre Ayton for either of those games, which, I think does help Suns' offense a lot more. They have been pretty solid with CP3 back until this kind of weird blowout loss to Atlanta where they gave up 132 and gave up 19 threes to the team that is the worst three-point shooting team in the league. And now they face Boston, which when they're right, it's just like an unstoppable machine, a barrage of threes. They hit 26 against Brooklyn, put them to bed in the first quarter, dominated the glass. They've still gone over in 4 of their last 5 at home. 2 of those were overtime games. The only under was also an overtime game against the Warriors, but they're scoring now 125 at home again, hitting 16.5 threes. Still aren't getting the assists that they were beginning of the year in terms of their just utter dominance at home, but they're still 17-8 to the over at home and go over when they get a little rest advantage. So they did get some extra rest there with that Brooklyn win. So I think they have the Suns' number here. Mainly they have Chris Paul's number in terms of him he might be able to orchestrate defensively, but individually, what if he gets switched on to Jaylen Brown? I mean, he's got to start on Malcolm Brogdon. These guys are just too much younger and bigger and physical for him. And the Celtics seem to know how to avoid Bridges and just attack the weaker defenders on the Suns team. And they have not brought it on the road lately. They've gone over in 4 of their last 5 roadies. Again, the pace has gone up to 100. And they've given up some huge totals lately to Memphis and Denver and other really good offenses. So I think the Celtics are going to score a bunch here. It's just I'm not sure if the Suns are going to come along and cover, but I do like the over more than anything.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, It's a low total, no doubt, right? I get that for sure, especially when I think, you look at a Celtics game at home and the first thing you see is a total that dropped from 226 to 221 and a half. So obviously there's been plenty of action agreeing with you, Nate, that this game, or I'm sorry, disagreeing with you, Nate, that this is going under. And maybe you find it at a nice total at 220. I'm sorry, you're obviously saying this is going over. You find it at a nice total of 221 and a half if you want to take it over. I just can't find anything to tell me why this will go over. And look, this is a slightly adjusted line at this point by 4.5 points that you can get it all the way down to. So it is lower than you would expect, and that changes things. Not that we're much closer to the margin of where I would have started this game at 222 or so rather than that 226. But like I said, the first thing that jumps out is a Boston game at home, and Boston might score 122 like they normally do at home, and then this total is basically just at that the Suns needing to score 100 points. It's just everything doesn't lead everything in the stats, the matchups all kind of lead me to believe there are not going to be a lot of points scored in this game. The NBA has kind of shook what I think to be a lot of points in this season. So I don't know what you want to do with that, right? Like a 221 total is unheard of these days. But I think, the key for me and why I would consider, being a little bit tentative with an over of any kind right now when you're using what the Suns have done since Chris Paul came back, right? In 4 of their last 5 games, he's been back for 5. You mentioned a number of those have gone over with some OT in there, but you look at who they've played in those 5 games, and that's where I start to go, all right, playing against pace and opponent field goal percentage. Like that's really what I was looking at in the teams that played against the Suns over the course of this 5-game span. And it's Atlanta, who's 21st in opponent field goal percentage, 10th in pace. San Antonio, dead last in field goal percentage, 9th in pace. Shaw, 26th, 7th in pace. Toronto, 27th in opponent field goal percentage. So you need to be able to stop the mid-range. You need to be able to stop the Suns from taking one step inside the 3-point line and scoring, or Chris Paul finding guys like Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson, and even DA obviously close to the basket. So like, if that's to tell us anything, the way that they've been winning as well, obviously assist percentage and Chris Paul being in there, slowing things down and making sure that they get the right guy open each and every possession. But Boston's second in limiting those assists on the season and really over the last 5. Third in O rebound percentage as well, as they've been relying on some second chance points. Boston's the number 1 team in terms of denying offensive rebounds this season, grabbing up the most defensive rebounds. So and they've got the second most 2-point field goal percentage that they're allowing to their opponent, does Boston right now. So they are playing a bit better defense. I think what I agree with you is that Phoenix is going to struggle to score a bit more on Boston, but that Boston's going to have their way probably a lot more on offense. And it's just going to be a matter of, can they get the possessions? Can they get out in the fast break? Phoenix has been stopping the fast break a ton. And so I think they know. I mean, they know they have to stop threes and they need to stop fast breaks with these guys. And that's going to be what they have to do. So look, I hate to say it, but I think I'm on the teaser train, Nate. Like, I know I usually give you shit for this, but I want this game back up to I want to take an over, a little bit lower. And I just want, Boston to have to win by 4 or 5 points, pull this one out at the end. Please don't give me shit the way I do you, but, let me know what you think.
I feel extremely comfortable with the total at 217. And I do think Boston can roll. I mean, I think sometimes the line is speaking to you when it's set at -9.5. It's like, what does Vegas expect to happen here? They expect Boston to just dominate the way they did Brooklyn, just not no contest. And the Suns, with their current status of mental makeup, are they going to really be able to hang around and make this a close game? Are they going to be able to stick together on the road? Or is it going to be like the last 2 matchups between these teams where the Suns were actually at the height of their powers and Boston just came in and smacked them? I mean, maybe not the one this season, but last year on New Year's Eve. But I mean, just looking at the lines again, where Boston is favored by at least 7, and they've scored at least 117 basically in 6 of those last 7 games. Orlando being the exception, and we know what Orlando has been a thorn in their side in 3 matchups already this season. So, I mean, they clearly don't mind this matchup. The one concern is their defense is going to be so good that the Suns don't get to 100, but that didn't matter against the Nets. It still went way over. And with Marcus Smart out, you do like that the Suns' chances a little bit more to keep pace and for CP3 to keep them on a respectable course offensively, because he is so good in that sense. But yeah, I mean, you put in here their games are averaging 219 with CP back in the lineup, and so all you're saying is we need a slight above average performance from the Boston Celtics, which the best offense in the league at home. So I'll take it.
Yeah, home favorites as well, like you were saying, 17-8, really 18-8 to the over, getting over by like 8 points a game in those situations where they're hitting over those totals. And like you said, when they're favored like that, it's because they're scoring more than 117 points a game. If they're going to score 117 tonight, which I think I'm really saying my favorite bet once again is their team total. Maybe a little parlay with that Boston team total and that Philly team total, as I think both those teams are going to be just dropping points all over the place. Phoenix, not necessarily the pretty good in terms of limiting 3-pointers over the course of their last roughly 5 since CP's back. But really, the percentage, they're still allowing a decent percentage. Obviously, you can say maybe they can't control that as much, but they don't seem to be running guys off the line. There's plenty of 3-point attempts coming against them, 5th most in their last 5 games that they're allowing 3-point attempts. If you're going to give up like 31 attempts up from deep to the Celtics, which by the way, they're probably going to be shooting about 40 of them, and they need to make like 17 of them to win this game. 16. I don't think the Suns have the ability to stop that right now. So that is all the time we have for you in this one. Make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Also got another game video up for you, like I mentioned, the Philadelphia 76ers and the Spurs, as well as those player props. So until we see you next, happy betting.